Hello everybody, Zeidoktor here. In this episode of the Typical Manga Review, we just have the one manga chapter this week. It's of My Hero Academia, chapter 128, Boy Meets... We pick up from where we left off last week, where Deku is basically bouncing around the room trying to get so fast and so strong that Sir Supermoto, Sir Night Eye rather, is unable to follow him even with foresight. Of course, this just prompts Night Eye to mock him as being a Gran Torino ripoff. He points out that it's pointless because so long as the conditions are met, it doesn't matter if it's 1 second, 1 minute, or 1 hour from now. I'll see through everything you'll do and everywhere you'll do it. And as he actually does dodge Deku and actually just gives him a little soft bop on the head. Incidentally, in 2 minutes' time, you'll be double over in grief, neither steel nor paper in hand. And Deku's just cursing himself as he gets thrown around here. This whole time your expression has seemed quite vexed, and I would have thought the first thing All Might taught you was that the one who stands at the top should never express worry or doubt. A man who truly understands that behaves with vision. Are you incapable of putting things you've been taught so many times into practice here and now in the testing fields? You said you'd make me acknowledge you, no? And yet, the more I see of you, the less reason I see why it needed to be you. This gets Deku riled up for sure, and Deku's jumping around through the walls again, screaming out that All Might said I could be one. One what? Just another face in the crowd? He said I could become the top hero. And at this point, Deku grabs a desk and throws it and the contents at Night Eye. I'm sorry, but you said you didn't care what happened to the room, right? Meanwhile, we hear Deku's analysis. Think. He said as long as the conditions are met, he can see through what I'll do and where I'll do it. What I'll do and where. Note the way he put that. What exactly is he seeing? Is he seeing the future exactly as it'll play out in its entirety, or is he just the actions of the select target? I need to test it, because if it's the latter, then he shouldn't be able to foresee the trajectory of randomly flung objects. And with this, he's basically got all the books and papers and everything that's flying through the air. Deku's focused on the seal and just jumps for it. You're not the only one who can't back down. And as he makes his grab for the seal, I am All Might's disciple. And he whiffs. Because as Night Eye says, the thing I do see didn't change. And he's getting ready, I can still, but then something catches his attention and he slams face first into the wall. And falls. He's getting ready to try again. I can still, it's over. Your 3 minutes are up. His disciple. I grow tired of hearing that. How unsightly you look. And after a slight thing like a strategy not working, did you run out of steam? But Deku points out that's not the problem. It's actually, the issue was that the special All Might 10 years on Heroic's anniversary tapestry, he almost got stepped on because of him. Then Night Eye starts taking a closer look around the room and realizes, oh, don't tell me. He saw all the All Might images. And he points out that you purposely dodged them, all while bouncing around like Gran Torino, didn't you? You mean to tell me that despite all of my provocations and emotional baiting, he still kept his surroundings and his strategy against me in mind the whole time? He actually laughs at that. Also, on a brief note, the art on this page is freaking what? It's just sketches almost. It's if you ever read the first few chapters of the Chimera Ant arc in Hunter x Hunter, it's not quite that bad, but you can see where I'm coming from. Oh boy. Meanwhile, Mirio and Bubble Girl pop back in, Barnas, is it over? We got pretty loud in here. Mirio, he's tired. What? Alright, awesome! Midoriya is what? But I couldn't pass your test! I believe I told you to take the seal and stamp the paper yourself. But I never said if you couldn't, I wouldn't hire you. You've gotta be. Way to go, Midoriya! And he also seems to notice that Sir managed to laugh. My decision to hire you was settled the moment I heard you were coming. What? I've come to understand that you won't make for a completely useless addition. What? But I do not take that to mean that I acknowledge you. Now that the people wait in want of a symbol, they don't yearn for a faint light but a dazzling one. And even if that necessitates defying his will, I shall have you step into the real world and realize for yourself who in this age is suited for that power. And Deku pretty much realizes exactly what this means. He knows that One for All transfers according to the will of its bearer. So Night Eye is actually hiring him to make him give it up. but still, he'd be honored to serve under him. Because now he's thinking of All Might, who chose him, and Sir Night Eye, who won't acknowledge that, and Togata, who Night Eye chose. And we see in the narration, while I stood bewildered at the bizarre tangle of bonds, the next day came. And in no time, the first day. It's Mirio, Bubble Girl, and Deku getting their first assignment. Today we'll be conducting both patrol and surveillance work. Bubble Girl will stay with me, while Mirio and Midoriya will form their own pair. And as Deku asks, Bubble Girl explains that Night Eye officers are in the middle of a secret investigation. We're tracking, and Night Eye goes on that they're tracking a small group of villains named the Eightfold Cleansers. I forget what the Viz version called them on that, but I'll get to that when I get to it. The capo in that photo is a man named Chisaki, and has begun to display some odd behavior. He also notes that he shows Deku a photo of Overhaul, noting that the plague mask is his trademark. Deku recognizes him as a Yakuza, but like, nowadays those kind of people are lying low, or at least that's the image. And Bubble Girl confirms this because back in the day they were pretty much dismantled. But this Chisaki guy started resembling them for some reason. They even made contact with the League of Villains, though they don't know the details. However, the problem here is that they don't have any direct evidence of any plots of theirs. As such, they're gray, very near black, but nevertheless we can't treat them as like villains. What my officers are after is proof of criminal activity from them, while never attracting their suspicion. And now, in the city proper, we see the big old crowd of quirk users. Things like, we see a guy with a third eye, a girl with wings, someone, I'm not sure if it's a man or woman, with horns, someone with a merman headpiece there. I love the crowd shots in the series. And we'll see two people like running, or one person panting heavily. And this person is thinking, somebody, anybody, I can't take it, please. And we see a little girl pretty much ram right into Deku. Little girl just with one horn. And as Deku's helping her up, like, someone comes up behind her. Look at you, causing a hero so much trouble. And that's how my lengthy internship began, Deku thinks, as he gets one good long shot at Overhaul standing right in front of him, telling the little girl Eri to come back. And that is where the chapter ends. And you know what? I think I've said this before, but I do like Night Eye as a character, even if he is kind of an ass. Or maybe even especially because of it. Because the thing with him is, like, he's challenging Deku in a way I don't think anyone ever really considered before. I never really thought about before. Because, like, you have his mentors like Eraserhead and All Might who challenge him by trying to be stronger, but we have Night Eye now who not only, or even, who, hang on, like we have Eraserhead, All Might, we also have Gran Torino who's challenging him and mastering his power, but now we have Night Eye who is not going to be very supportive of him, like unlike his prior mentors. He wants Deku to fail, or at least he wants him to realize that Mirio is a better choice for One for All. And there's actually a good way to make use of the fact that One for All is willing it to somebody is a conscious decision. By the way, there's actually a pretty good touch on there. It is a bit of a contrived coincidence that the very first day Deku is out on the streets, out on the beat, he runs into Overhaul like immediately. It's like, dude, come on. Still, this does have some promise here. See what we'll get out of it, because Deku can't really start a fight right now. Like, Sir Night Eye pretty much said it to him. Like, the guy isn't a villain. There's no evidence of it. I mean, we the readers know obviously, but they don't have actual proof that they could use in story. And as a result of that, they can't just treat Overhaul like he's a bad guy. Like, he's gray, he's not a nice guy, but he's not an enemy. Which means, the paraphrase or forum post I saw somewhere else, Deku may be forced to watch someone he wants to say walk away from him. And there may not be a damn thing he can do about it. The other thought I had, because we also saw Mirio in costume earlier, like at the end of the chapter. How many costumes do you think Mirio goes through on a regular basis because of his quirk? Or is this a situation where his quirk is somehow able to work with his costume in some way? Because we know that regular uniforms and regular clothes don't, but the costumes are usually made to compensate or work with them in some way. Like, Deku has his leg braces, Kaminari has his lightning rod projectiles, Bakugo has his grenade armbands, things like that. So there's definitely something to be had right there. I'm kind of curious to see now if there is anything to Mirio's costume beyond just making them look awesome, which is the primary function of superhero costumes. And I'm kind of curious to see how Night Eye and Bubble Girl are in the field, because I'm, at the very least, I think, because if you think about it, Night Eye is a lot like Stain in a way. His quirk isn't powerful on its own, but he does have to at least make physical contact with an enemy first, which means he has to at least be a pretty good fighter. Because he needs to make physical contact with it. Like Stain, he has to make physical contact with the enemy first before he can use his power. And we're not even entirely sure what Bubble Girl can do just yet. I mean, beyond just what the name implies, which is to get one-shotted by metal blades. Listen, we've definitely got an interesting confrontation coming up next with next chapter. That's for damn sure. And I am hoping at least Night Eye was at least a little impressed with Deku, because, as he notes, despite all the baiting and such he was trying to do, Deku was still keeping a level head as far as tactics go. Like, he never this damaged entity All Might merchandise. He was able to keep things going on there. I do find it interesting that the aspect of prediction here with Night Eye's ability, like the one thing he can see is Deku. Like, he can't see any other objects. Like he can see maybe what Deku would do, but not necessarily why he's doing it. Like he said, he saw Deku doubled over in pain, and that was because Deku allowed himself to get the face plant into a wall. So there's definitely some room for interest right there, like to see what kind of limits we have on there. So for example, like he may not be good in a crowd fight because he can maybe follow one person, but not everybody else. Of course, that depends on just how many people he can follow at once. That's always kind of the tricky thing with powers like these. Sort of like how we saw with the Eraserhead, he had to maintain eye contact all the time. As for those weird pages, I don't know what that's about. Like they said, there's these weird pages that are like just basically like the most basic sketches imaginable. Like I said, I compared it to Hunter x Hunter, because there's a really bad phase at the start of the Chimera Ant arc where, because the guy was sick, or at least that's when he started being sick, like the art is just ugh. Like it's non-existent. Is that was what it was? And I haven't looked at the chapter, I haven't seen the chapter myself yet, but I've read it also occurred in this week's chapter of Black Clover. So I don't know, maybe something going on at the office side of things. Like maybe a couple of the authors just got sick that week, but not so bad that they couldn't like turn in their stuff. Hard to say. Still, like I said, I do like the fact that Night Eye kind of trolled Deku a little bit. Like, yeah, I said you had to do it. I never said I wouldn't hire you. But at the same time, it's like, I want to see how this turns out now, because this is a whole different challenge than what Deku's dealt with before. It's not the same kind of hostility he gets from the villains like Stain or Shigaraki. And it's a mentor figure, but it's not one that wants to actually be the hero. So he's got to prove himself in a whole other way here. So that definitely is going to be worth seeing how it turns out. Like, will he do something that gets him not mad at him with Overhaul here, or is something else going to happen on this? In the meantime, though, I'm going to go ahead and call the review here. Like I said, that's been... Oh, actually, one last thing before I forget. This week, I'm using a different scanlator. Like, normally I use MangaStream, but I recently got turned over to Jaiminis Box. I don't know what that... Like, JAIMINIS box.com. And they've got a few series on here. They've got... They do One Piece as well, and I might be using them going forward as well, because I think I do like their translations a little more than MangaStream was. They also do a couple of other series I like. Like there's one I might do a review this weekend for it, maybe if time allows, called We Never Learn. It's like it was also like the Jumpstart series in the last few weeks in Shonen Jump, or US Shonen Jump rather, about two girls who are trying to study subjects that are completely contrary to their natural talents and are terrible at it. So I definitely like the premise of that one, so I might be including that as maybe like as an under the radar type of thing going forward in this week, because I do want to at least try and include something like that in these weeks without One Piece. If not, I've got a couple of Undertales I've been meaning to upload forever, so I'll probably do one or the other. Even if I don't do the one, even though I do the review, I'll still get the Undertale stuff going this week for sure. I decided that I can't really be a lazy asshole about that anymore. But for now, that has been the typical manga review for My Hero Academia, Chapter 128, Boy Meets dot dot dot. Until next time, have a good week and bye-bye.